The rain had no mercy. Elena Carter stood at the corner of Victoria Island's busiest intersection, water streaming down her face in rivulets that mingled with tears she could no longer distinguish from the storm. Her dark braids, once carefully maintained, now hung heavy and cold against her neck. Baby Lily, wrapped in a faded teal cloth against her chest, let out another shallow, rattling cough that cut through the hiss of tires on wet asphalt. Her feet had gone numb an hour ago. But she couldn't move. Wouldn't move. "Madam, you still here?" A street vendor shook his head as he hurried past. "This your baby go catch cold. Why you no go find shelter?" Elena's lips parted, but no words came. Where would she go? The shelter had turned them away, full capacity. The church had given her one meal and told her to trust God's timing. "She's probably scamming," a woman muttered to her companion, both huddled under a shared umbrella. "They train these people to look pitiful." The words landed like stones, but Elena barely flinched anymore. She'd become invisible, desperate, the kind of person she used to glance at and then quickly look away from. Lily whimpered, her tiny fist clutching Elena's soaked shirt. "Mommy's here, baby," Elena whispered, her voice breaking. "We are going to eat today. I promise you. Someone will stop. Someone has to stop." The traffic light turned red. Expensive cars idled inches away, so close Elena could see the dry, warm interiors, drivers staring straight ahead, deliberately avoiding her gaze. One by one, the lights turned green. One by one, they drove away. Then she saw it. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows stopped at the light. Through the rain-distorted glass, Elena caught a glimpse of a figure inside, sharp suit, rigid posture, someone who lived in a world so far removed from hers they might as well be on different planets. The light turned green. The SUV didn't move. Inside the vehicle, Daniel Whitmore sat frozen, his jaw tight, his eyes wide with something between shock and internal war, the expression of a man who had just seen something he could never unseen. The horn blared behind him, sharp, impatient, unmistakably Lagos. Then another joined it, and another, a chorus of irritation that should have jolted Daniel back to reality. His driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, then to him, uncertain. "Sir, we're blocking." "I know." Daniel's voice came out hoarse. He couldn't look away from her. From them. The woman stood perfectly still, as if moving might shatter whatever fragile hope she was clinging to. The baby, God, the baby was so small, coughed again, a wet, rattling sound that pierced straight through the reinforced glass, through his expensive suit, through every wall he'd built between himself and the suffering of this city. He'd seen beggars before. Hundreds of them. Thousands, maybe. You couldn't live in Lagos without developing a shield, a necessary numbness that let you function, let you drive past without the weight of every tragedy crushing you into paralysis. But this was different. Maybe it was the way she held the child, not with the theatrical desperation of a performance, but with the fierce, protective tenderness of someone who had nothing left except that one small life. Maybe it was the rain plastering her braids to her face, the way she didn't even try to wipe it away anymore. Maybe it was how young she looked beneath the exhaustion, how easily she could have been someone's daughter, someone's sister. Maybe it was the fact that she wasn't even looking at him with expectation. Just acceptance. As if she'd already resigned herself to him driving away like all the others. The light had been green for 15 seconds now. "Sir, you're meeting with the Singapore investors." "Stop the car." His driver turned fully in his seat. "Sir." Daniel was already reaching for the door handle, his heart hammering against his ribs in a way it hadn't during any boardroom negotiation, any million-dollar deal. This felt bigger. More irreversible. "Pull over. Now." The SUV lurched to the curb. Daniel pushed the door open before they'd fully stopped, and then he was out, standing in the downpour, feeling the rain soak through his $1,000 suit in seconds. The cold hit him like a slap, shocking and clarifying. He walked toward her, each step feeling like a choice he couldn't take back. When he stopped in front of Elena Carter, close enough to see the exhaustion carved into her face, the fear and hope warring in her eyes, he realized something that would change everything. He couldn't walk away. Not anymore. Elena's first instinct was to step back. Men in expensive suits didn't walk toward people like her with good intentions. They walked past. They looked away. They sometimes threw money from car windows like feeding pigeons, never making eye contact, never acknowledging the humanity of the transaction. But Daniel Whitmore stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the water dripping from his hair, the concern etched into his face. His eyes weren't on her, they were fixed on Lily, on the tiny bundle that had gone too still, too quiet. When did she last eat? His voice was softer than she expected, rough with something that sounded like anger, though not at her. Elena's throat closed. She tried to form words, but they tangled with shame and desperation. Yesterday, she finally managed. Yesterday morning. Daniel's jaw tightened. He dragged the hand across his face, wiping away rain that was immediately replaced. And you? She couldn't answer that. The truth, 2 days, maybe 3, felt too humiliating to speak aloud. Lily chose that moment to shiver violently, a full-body tremor that Elena felt against her chest like a knife. The baby's lips had taken on a bluish tint. Elena pulled the wet cloth tighter, a useless gesture, her hands shaking. Please. Daniel's voice cracked slightly. Let me help. I have a car. It's warm. I can take you somewhere, get food, get her dry. Why? The word escaped before Elena could stop it. Suspicion, born from too many broken promises, too many people who'd offered help only to demand something worse in return. Why would you? Because she's cold. Daniel gestured toward Lily, his movements careful, non-threatening. Because you're both soaking wet and she needs to eat and he stopped, seeming to search for the right words. I can't just drive away. Please. Another shiver ran through Lily's small body. Elena felt her daughter's cold skin through the damp cloth, felt the shallow rise and fall of her breathing. She looked at the SUV idling at the curb, its interior glowing warm and dry. Then back at Daniel, at the rain streaming down his expensive suit, at the genuine distress in his eyes. Okay, she whispered. Daniel exhaled, relief flooding his features. He gestured toward the car, staying back, letting her walk ahead. The driver had already opened the door, his expression unreadable. Elena climbed in, Lily clutched against her chest, and sank into leather seats that felt like a dream. Warmth enveloped them immediately. Daniel slid in beside her, careful to leave space between them. What's your name? He asked quietly. Elena. Elena Carter. Her voice trembled. This is Lily. I'm Daniel. He nodded to his driver. Take us to the nearest restaurant. Somewhere quiet. The car pulled into traffic, and Elena closed her eyes, feeling Lily's shivering begin to ease, trying to believe this was real. The restaurant was the kind of place Elena had only glimpsed through windows, soft lighting, pristine white tablecloths, the quiet murmur of wealth insulated from the chaos outside. When Daniel guided her through the entrance, still dripping rainwater onto polished floors, every head turned. The hostess's smile faltered. Her eyes traveled from Daniel's soaked designer suit to Elena's threadbare clothes, to the baby wrapped in faded cloth, and something like alarm flickered across her face. Mr. Whitmore, she said carefully. We weren't expecting. A private booth. Now. Daniel's tone left no room for discussion. They were seated in a corner, away from prying eyes. Elena perched on the edge of the leather seat, acutely aware of how out of place she looked, how the dampness from her clothes was probably ruining the expensive upholstery. Daniel ordered without looking at the menu, soup, bread, juice, hot tea. When the food arrived, he pushed the bowl of soup toward Elena, then paused. "For Lily first," he said gently. Elena's hands shook as she took the spoon, testing the temperature before bringing it to her daughter's lips. Lily's eyes widened at the warmth, the nourishment, and she drank eagerly, desperately. Elena fed her slowly, carefully, watching color return to those tiny cheeks. Only when Lily had eaten her fill did Elena pick up her own spoon. The first taste broke something inside her. Hot, savory, real. She tried to eat slowly, maintain some dignity, but hunger overwhelmed everything else. Tears streamed down her face, silent, unstoppable, as she consumed the meal like it might vanish if she didn't finish quickly enough. Daniel looked away, giving her that small mercy. "How long?" he asked after a moment, his voice low. Elena set down her spoon, wiping her eyes with shaking hands. 3 months. On the streets, I mean. The words came easier now, loosened by warmth and food and the strange safety of this moment. "Lily's father, he left when I was 7 months pregnant. Said he wasn't ready. I thought I could manage alone, but..." Her voice cracked. "I lost my job. Couldn't pay rent. My family, they didn't approve of him, of the pregnancy. They said it was my choice, so..." She pulled Lily closer. "The shelter was full. The churches could only do so much. And then it was just rain and corners and hoping someone would see us. Really see us." Daniel's jaw clenched. "You're not going back out there. I don't understand why you're helping us." He met her eyes, something raw and honest in his expression. "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." Daniel reached into his jacket, pulling out a leather wallet that probably cost more than Elena had earned in 6 months of her old job. He extracted a stack of crisp bills, more money than she'd seen in one place in years, and placed it on the table between them. "This is for immediate needs," he said. "Food, clothes for Lily, a safe place to stay for a few days." Elena stared at the money, her throat tight. "I can't, this is too much. It's not enough." Daniel's voice was firm. "But I have a meeting I can't miss. Important investors from Singapore." He glanced at his watch, and Elena saw the conflict play across his face, duty versus compassion, both pulling him in opposite directions. He pulled a business card from his wallet, embossed with gold lettering. "I want to help you properly. Not just today, but long term. Get you back on your feet." He slid the card toward her. "Call me in 3 hours. By then, my meeting will be done. We'll figure out next steps, stable housing, maybe help with finding work." Elena picked up the card with trembling fingers. Daniel Whitmore, CEO, Whitmore Industries. A mobile number printed beneath. 3 hours. Her stomach twisted with a different kind of panic now. She opened her mouth to speak, to confess that she had no phone, no way to call, that this precious card might as well be worthless in her hands, but the words stuck. Shame, hot and choking, sealed her lips. What if he took it all back? What if admitting she couldn't even afford a phone made him realize how truly helpless she was, how impossible it would be to help someone who'd fallen this far? "Thank you," she whispered instead, tucking the card carefully into the fold of Lily's swaddling cloth, making sure it was secure against her daughter's warm body. "I'll call. I promise." Daniel studied her for a moment, and she wondered if he could see through the lie, if her fear was written across her face as clearly as the rain had been. But he only nodded, standing. 3 hours, Elena. I'll be waiting. He signaled to his driver, who'd been standing discreetly by the entrance. Take them anywhere they need to go. Make sure they're safe. Then he was gone, stepping back into the rain, back into his world of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. Elena sat alone in the quiet booth, Lily sleeping peacefully against her chest, the business card pressed between them like a promise she had no idea how to keep. Alena found shelter under the awning of a closed pharmacy, 2 blocks from the diner. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the streets were still slick with water, puddles reflecting the gray sky above. She settled onto the dry concrete, back against the wall, counting the bills Daniel had given her with disbelieving fingers. Enough for a cheap hotel. Maybe 2 nights. Food for a week if she was careful. Lily stared against her chest, making soft sounds that weren't quite cries. Alena adjusted the swaddling cloth, loosening it slightly now that they were out of the cold, giving her daughter room to breathe. The card. She needed to keep it safe. 3 hours, he'd said. She'd find a way, maybe borrow someone's phone, explain the situation, beg if she had to. People could be kind. Today had proven that. She shifted Lily in her arms, repositioning the cloth more comfortably. The baby settled, her breathing evening out into sleep. Alena leaned her head back against the wall, allowing herself a moment to simply exist without fear, without the constant desperate calculation of where the next meal would come from. She didn't notice the card slip free. Didn't see it flutter down, white against grey concrete, didn't hear the soft sound as it landed face down in a shallow puddle beside the grate. The rain-soaked paper began to dissolve immediately, gold lettering bleeding into nothing. Daniel sat in the executive conference room of the Eco Hotel, surrounded by men in suits discussing investment portfolios and market projections. The Singapore investors were pleased, the deal was practically sealed, but Daniel found his attention drifting to his phone, sitting face up on the polished table. No calls. No messages. He checked the time. 2 hours and 40 minutes since he'd left the diner. Mr. Whitmore. One of the investors was looking at him expectantly. Sorry. Daniel forced his focus back. Could you repeat that? The meeting dragged on. Daniel nodded at appropriate moments, signed preliminary documents, shook hands. All the while, his phone remained stubbornly silent. 3 hours came and went. Then 3.5. By the time the investors finally departed, thanking him profusely, Daniel's jaw was tight with something he didn't want to name. Doubt. Cynicism. The old, familiar voice that whispered he'd been a fool. He picked up his phone, staring at the blank screen. She hadn't called. Daniel told his driver to take him back to the restaurant. He told himself it was just to check, to confirm what he already suspected. People like Alena, desperate, broken, they took what they could get and disappeared. He'd been naive to think this time would be different, that the authenticity he'd seen in her eyes meant anything more than a skilled performance. The cynicism tasted bitter, but familiar. Safe. The restaurant staff looked surprised to see him return so soon. He waved off their greetings, heading straight for the entrance, scanning the street outside. No sign of her. He hadn't really expected there to be. Then he saw it. A flash of white near the curb, half submerged in a puddle beside the drainage grate. Daniel crossed the sidewalk, crouching down, his expensive shoes squelching in the water. His business card. He picked it up carefully, though it was already ruined, paper soft and disintegrating, the ink bleeding into illegible smears. Dirt and grime clung to the edges. It looked like it had been lying there for hours, trampled and forgotten. Thrown away. Daniel straightened, the soggy card dripping in his palm. The evidence felt damning. She'd taken his money, accepted his generosity, and then, what? Decided the hassle of a phone call wasn't worth the effort. Decided to cash out while she was ahead. He should have known better. But even as the thought formed, another image pushed against it, Lily's blue-tinged lips, the way Alena had fed her daughter before herself, the raw honesty in her voice when she'd recounted her story. The dignity she'd clung to even while accepting help. I'll call. I promise. She'd meant it. He'd stake his reputation on reading people, and she had meant it. So why was his card in a puddle? Daniel looked down the street toward where he'd first seen them, that rain-soaked corner where Elena had stood like a ghost, invisible to everyone but him. If she'd thrown the card away, she'd be long gone by now. But if something else had happened, if she'd lost it accidentally, she might have gone back. Back to the only place she knew he might find her. It was a long shot. Probably foolish. Daniel pocketed the ruined card and strode back to his car. "Take me to Victoria Island," he said. "The intersection where we stopped this morning." His driver glanced at him in the mirror but said nothing, pulling back into traffic. Daniel stared at the window, trying to ignore the hope struggling against his doubt. Elena's hand flew to Lily's swaddling cloth for the 100th time, fingers searching for the reassuring crispness of the business card. Nothing. Panic seized her chest. She unwrapped the cloth completely, shaking it out, checking every fold, every corner. The card wasn't there. She searched the ground around her, the dry concrete under the awning, the cracks in the pavement. Gone. "No, no, no," the word escaped as a whimper. She rewrapped Lily with shaking hands, her mind racing backward, trying to pinpoint the moment. When had she last felt it? When had she last checked? The adjustment. When she'd loosened the cloth to let Lily breathe easier. It must have fallen then. Elena grabbed the money Daniel had given her, stuffing it into her pocket, and ran back toward the diner, retracing her steps, her eyes scanning every inch of wet pavement. People stared as she passed, this wild-eyed woman clutching a baby, searching the ground like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. The diner came into view. Elena dropped to her knees on the sidewalk outside, searching the gutter, the puddles, anywhere the card might have landed. Her fingers scraped against concrete, through dirty water, grasping at nothing. "Miss, you need to move," a security guard was approaching, hand raised. "Please, I lost something, a business card, white with gold." "There's nothing here. You need to go." Elena looked up at him, desperation cracking her voice. "Please, it's important, I need." "Move along." She stood slowly, defeated. Through the restaurant's glass window, she could see the elegant interior, the table where she'd sat with Daniel just hours ago. It felt like a dream now, distant and impossible. He told her 3 hours. That time had come and gone. By now, he probably thought she'd taken his money and run, that she was exactly what people assumed, a scammer, a fraud, someone who took advantage of kindness. The thought broke something inside her. Elena walked away from the diner, Lily heavy in her arms, the money in her pocket feeling more like a burden than a blessing. She could find a hotel, could survive for a few days, but then what? Back to the streets. Back to the rain and the cold and the slow erosion of hope. Unless. Elena stopped walking. The intersection. The corner where Daniel had first seen her, where his car had stopped and everything had changed. If he looked for her, if some miracle made him believe her, made him come searching, that's where he'd go. It was foolish. Desperate. The odds of him returning were impossible. But it was all she had. Elena turned around, heading back toward Victoria Island, toward the rain-soaked corner where this had all begun. She would wait. Elena spent that night under an overpass, Lily tucked against her chest, both of them wrapped in a thin blanket she'd bought from a street vendor. The concrete was cold and unforgiving, but at least it was dry. At least they had food, bread and milk that she'd purchased with careful reluctance, each naira spent feeling like a betrayal of Daniel's generosity. She should have been looking for a room. Should have been thinking practically about surviving the next week, the next month. Instead, she stared at the dark sky beyond the overpass and prayed to a God she wasn't sure was listening anymore. Please. Let him come back. Let him look for me. Please. Morning came gray and hesitant. Elena fed Lily, changed her using supplies she'd bought the day before, and walked back to the intersection. The same corner. The same spot where Daniel's SUV had stopped, where everything had changed. She stood there as traffic built, as the city woke around her. Cars passed, expensive ones, cheap ones, everything in between. None of them was the sleek black SUV with tinted windows. Hours crawled by. Elena's legs ached. Lily grew fussy, then quiet, then fussy again. People walked past, some throwing coins that Elena left untouched on the ground. She wasn't begging anymore. She was waiting. Daniel stood in his living room, surveying the preparations with a distraction he couldn't shake. His younger brother Marcus was arriving from London today, a surprise visit that should have filled him with excitement. Instead, he found himself staring at his phone, at the unanswered call he'd placed yesterday to his own number, just to make sure it was working. It was. She just hadn't called. "Sir, the caterers are asking about the menu." His house manager hovered nearby, tablet in hand. "Whatever they recommend is fine." "And Marcus's room?" "It's ready. Everything's ready." Daniel's voice came out sharper than intended. He softened it. "I'm sorry. Just handle it. You know what to do." He'd driven past the intersection yesterday afternoon. She hadn't been there. The corner had been empty, just another piece of pavement in a city full of them. He'd felt foolish for even looking, for hoping. Today he had family obligations. Marcus's flight landed in 2 hours. There would be lunch, catching up, the celebration dinner tonight. Normal life, resuming as if that moment in the rain had never happened. Daniel turned away from the window, trying to focus on the present, trying to forget the image of Elena's face, the promise in her voice. "I'll call. I promise." Across the city, Elena remained at her corner, eyes scanning every vehicle, waiting for a miracle that refused to come. The driver, Samuel, though Daniel rarely called him by name, navigated through Lagos traffic with practiced ease, Marcus chatting animatedly in the back seat about London weather and Nigerian food he'd been craving. Samuel nodded at appropriate moments, but his attention kept drifting to the route ahead. They were taking a different path than usual, avoiding the construction on Awolowo Road. Which meant passing through Victoria Island. Which meant there. Samuel's grip tightened on the wheel. The same corner. The same woman, standing in almost the exact spot where Mr. Whitmore had stopped 2 days ago. She held the baby the same way, protective and desperate, but something was different now. She wasn't looking down in defeat. She was watching the traffic with an intensity that made Samuel's chest ache. She was waiting for someone. "Samuel. You all right?" Marcus leaned forward, concerned. "Yes, sir." "Sorry." Samuel made a split-second decision, the kind that could cost him his job. "There's someone I need to speak with Mr. Whitmore about when we arrive." Marcus settled back, resuming his monologue about British weather. Samuel drove on, but the image of Elena's face stayed with him, the hope and exhaustion warring in her eyes, the way she clutched that baby like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the world. The mansion's circular driveway was full of cars. Guests had already begun arriving for the evening celebration. Samuel pulled up to the entrance, helping Marcus with his luggage, his heart hammering against his ribs. He should mind his business. Should let Mr. Whitmore enjoy his brother's visit without bringing up painful reminders of charitable gestures gone wrong. But he kept seeing her. Standing there. Waiting. Samuel. Daniel appeared at the entrance, embracing Marcus with genuine warmth. "Good flight." "Perfect, brother. Your driver's excellent as always." Daniel smiled, but Samuel caught the distraction beneath it, the same distraction that had plagued his employer for 2 days. "Sir." Samuel stepped forward before he could second-guess himself. "A word." It's important. Daniel's smile faded. He glanced at Marcus, who waved him off. Go. I need to freshen up anyway. They stepped aside, away from the arriving guest. Samuel kept his voice low. The woman from the other day. With the baby. She's at the corner. The same corner. She's been standing there. I think she's waiting for you, sir. Daniel went completely still. You're certain? Yes, sir. I just drove past her. She's still there. Something shifted in Daniel's expression, doubt crumbling, replaced by absolute certainty. He pulled out his phone, checking something, then looked back at Samuel with new urgency. Bring her here. Now. Don't take no for an answer. His voice was commanding, broking no argument. Bring her to me. Samuel nodded and ran back to the car. Elena didn't believe it when the black SUV pulled up. Didn't believe it when Samuel stepped out, his face kind and urgent. Didn't believe it even as he gently guided her into the vehicle, assuring her that Mr. Whitmore had been searching for her, that everything would be alright now. She believed it even less when they passed through iron gates into a world she'd only seen in magazines, manicured lawns, fountain sculptures, a mansion that sprawled like a small palace. Cars lined the driveway. Music and laughter drifted from inside. Wait, Elena pulled back as Samuel opened her door. There are people. I can't, look at me. Mr. Whitmore is expecting you. Please. She stepped out on trembling legs, acutely aware of her warm clothes, her unwashed hair, the way Lily's blanket was frayed at the edges. Samuel led her through a side entrance, then into a grand foyer where crystal chandeliers cast warm light over gathered guests in elegant attire. The conversation died instantly. All eyes turned toward her, this bedraggled woman holding a baby, completely out of place among the wealth and refinement. Elena froze, shame washing over her in waves. Then she saw Daniel. He stood near the center of the room, Marcus beside him, both men in expensive suits. Daniel's expression transformed the moment their eyes met, relief, joy, something that looked almost like pain. Elena's knees buckled. She sank down, right there on the marble floor, Lily clutched to her chest, her head bowing in a gesture of profound gratitude and subservience. No. Daniel's voice cut through the silence. He crossed the room in quick strides, dropping to one knee in front of her. Please, Elena. Don't do that. His hands were gentle but firm as he helped her stand, supporting her weight as if she might collapse. You don't kneel. Not to me. Not to anyone. The room remained silent, every guest watching this unprecedented scene unfold. I lost the card, Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean to, it fell, and I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find it. I didn't have a phone. I couldn't call. I'm so sorry. I know. Daniel's voice was thick with emotion. I know. You came back. You waited. He looked at the assembled guests, then back at her. You're safe now. Both of you. The next hours passed in a blur. A doctor was summoned to examine Lily, mild dehydration, early signs of a cold, but nothing that couldn't be treated. Elena was given a private room, a hot shower, clothes that actually fit. Staff moved around her with quiet efficiency, never judging, never questioning. When she emerged, clean and fed and dressed in borrowed clothes, Daniel was waiting. They sat in his study, away from the celebration, Lily sleeping peacefully in Elena's arms. I want to help you build something permanent, Daniel said. Not charity. Investment. You mentioned you worked before, what did you do? I was a seamstress. Made custom clothes. Elena's voice was hesitant. I always dreamed of having my own shop, but... Then that's what we'll do. Daniel leaned forward, his conviction absolute. I have found your business. Proper location, equipment, training if you need it. You'll pay me back when you're profitable, no interest, no pressure. Alena stared at him, unable to speak. You deserve dignity, Alena. You deserve a chance. Daniel smiled softly. Let me give you that. Outside, the celebration continued. But in this quiet room, a new life was beginning, one built not on charity, but on hope restored and faith rewarded. The end. Or is it just the beginning? What if you are the Daniel in someone else's story? Because here's the truth that will either comfort you or convict you. Every single person you pass is either your next blessing or your next regret. Alena was Daniel's test. And he passed, barely. What about you? Will you pass yours? Share this story if it moved you. Tag someone who needs to read it. Like and subscribe for more.